We are resuming at Deuteronomy chapter 28. So Moses is explaining to the Israelites the ceremony that they are going to perform as they cross over into the Promised Land, with 6 tribes on one side of this mountain range and 6 on the other, as the whole nation passes through this valley. It's a proclamation of curses on one side, and then a proclamation of blessings on the other. So chapter 28 is going through the blessings. And if you obey the voice of the Lord your God, being careful to do all his commandments, which I command you this day, the Lord your God will set you high above all the nations of the earth. All right, that is the blessing for being monotheist. You can pretty much draw a line through this whole chapter, or just circle the chapter number, indicate this whole chapter is about monotheism. Monotheism, monotheism, monotheism. Verse 2, and all these blessings shall come upon you and overtake you, if you obey the voice of the Lord your God. Blessed shall you be in the city, and blessed shall you be in the field. Blessed shall you be in the fruit of your body, and the fruit of your ground, and the fruit of your beasts, the increase of your cattle, and the young of your flock. Blessed shall be your basket and your kneading trough. Blessed shall you be when you come in, and blessed shall you be when you go out. The Lord will cause your enemies who rise against you to be defeated before you. They shall come out against you one way and flee before you in a covenantal way. All right, they're going to flee in 7 ways. The significance of the 7. It's because of their faithfulness, their monotheism, their faithfulness to the covenant. Verse 8. The Lord will command the blessing upon you in your barns and in all that you undertake, and he will bless you in the land which the Lord your God gives you. The Lord will establish you as a people holy to himself, as he has sworn to you, if you keep the commandments of the Lord your God and walk in his ways. And all the peoples of the earth shall see that you are called by the name of the Lord, and they shall be afraid of you. And the Lord will make you abound in prosperity in the fruit of your body and in the fruit of your cattle, and in the fruit of your ground within the land which the Lord swore to your fathers to give you. The Lord will open to you his good treasury in heavens, to give the rain of your land in its season, and to bless all the work of your hands. And you shall lend to many nations, but you shall not borrow. And the Lord will make you the head and not the tail. And you shall tend upward only, and not downward, if you obey the commandments of the Lord your God, which I command you this day, being careful to do them. Verse 14. And if you do not turn aside from any of the words which I command you this day, to the right hand or to the left, and go and dishonor your father, or go and have ham sandwiches, or go and touch leprous people. No. It's if you go to other gods and serve them. So whenever you read in Deuteronomy, obey all the commandments of the Lord, it always comes back to monotheism, right? Do they need to obey the rest of the law of Moses? Yes. But when you get this language of obey all the commands, all the commands, all the commands, and what does that look like? Don't turn aside to other gods. God bless you. Chapter 28, verse 15. But if you will not obey the voice of the Lord your God, or be careful to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command you this day, then all these curses shall come upon you and overtake you. Cursed shall you be in the city, and cursed shall you be in the field. Cursed shall you be in your basket and your kneading trough. Cursed shall be the fruit of your body and the fruit of your ground, the increase of your cattle and the young of your flock. Cursed shall you be when you come in, and cursed shall you be when you go out. The Lord will send upon you curses, confusion, and frustration in all that you undertake to do, until you are destroyed and perish quickly on account of the evil of your doings, because you had a ham sandwich. No, because you have forsaken me. You've abandoned God. Let's jump ahead to... no, let's keep going. Verse 21. And the Lord will make the pestilence cling to you until he has consumed you off the land which you are entering to take possession of it. The Lord will strike you with consumption and with fever, inflammation, and fiery heat, and with drought, and with blasting, and with mildew. They shall pursue you until you perish. And the heavens over your head shall be brass, and the earth under you shall be iron. All right, that means no rain. Nothing is going to grow. Verse 24, the Lord will make the rain of your land powder and dust. From heaven it shall come down upon you until you are destroyed. The Lord will cause you to be defeated before your enemies. You shall go out one way against them and flee in a covenantal manner. You're going to flee in 7 directions before them. And you shall be a horror to all the kingdoms of the earth. And your dead body shall be food for all birds of the air and for all beasts of the earth. And there shall be no one to frighten them away. The Lord will strike you with the boils of Egypt and with the ulcers and the scurvy and the itch, of which you cannot be healed. The Lord will strike you with madness and blindness and confusion of mind. And you shall grope at noonday as the blind grope in darkness. And you shall not prosper in your ways, and you shall be only oppressed and robbed continually. And there shall be no one to help you. You shall betroth a wife, and another man shall lie with her. You shall build a house, and you shall not dwell in it. You shall plant a vineyard, and you shall not use the fruit of it. So far we've seen references to the plagues of Egypt now coming upon the Israelites. But then also this reference to you're going to build a house and not live in it. You are going to plant a vineyard and not enjoy its fruit. This is the undoing of how they're going to come into the land. They're going to go into the promised land with all these vineyards ready to go and these houses already built, and they're going to come in and occupy them. And just like how they gained the land by being faithful, they're going to lose the land and everything's going to be exactly undone. Everything they planted, someone else is going to get, so on and so forth. Verse 31, your ox shall be slain before your eyes, and you shall not eat of it. Your donkey shall be violently taken away before your face, and shall not be restored to you. Your sheep shall be given to your enemies, and there shall be no one to help you. Your sons and your daughters shall be given to another people, while your eyes look on and fail with longing for them all the day. And it shall not be in the power of your hand to prevent it. A nation which you have not known shall eat up the fruit of your ground and of all your labors, and you shall be only oppressed and crushed continually, so that you shall be driven mad by the sight which your eyes shall see. The Lord will strike you on the knees and on the legs with grievous boils, of which you cannot be healed, from the sole of your foot to the crown of your head. Verse 36, the Lord will bring you and your king, whom you set over you, to a nation that neither you nor your fathers have known, and there you shall serve other gods of wood and stone. All right, so why it's not there you'll get to eat your ham sandwiches. All right, there you're in the other nation. That's where you can serve your idols. So because of following other gods, and even during the time of the kings, this is going to happen. The kings and the people are going to be led in exile, both first to Assyria and then again also to Babylon. And there they can, they can become Babylonians. Those are the gods that they want to worship. Yes, Anna. Verse 39, you shall plant vineyards and dress them, but you shall neither drink of the wine nor gather the grapes, for the worm shall eat them. Make a note to Amos chapter 5, verse 31. Amos chapter 5, from verse 39. Amos chapter 5, what verse? I can't tell if it's verse 31 or 11. Just leave it at chapter 5. I think enough. All right, let's jump ahead to verse 47. Because you did not serve the Lord your God with joyfulness and gladness of heart, by reason of the abundance of all things, therefore you shall serve your enemies, whom the Lord will send against you in hunger and thirst, in nakedness and in want of all things, and he will put a yoke of iron upon your neck until he has destroyed you. The Lord will bring a nation against you from afar, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flies, a nation whose language you do not understand. So this prophecy here, it does come true. So the Lord's going to bring a nation against you from afar, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flies. They were brought out of Egypt on eagle's wings. And if they're not going to be faithful to the covenant, then God is also going to take them out, so to speak, on eagle's wings, right? And the eagle is the symbol for what in the ancient world? Speed. All right, so quickly they were brought into the promised land, and just as quickly they're going to be taken out. This language, this nation that's from the ends of the earth in a language that they don't understand, that's a reference to the nation of Babylon, right? Which is where the Tower of Babel was, which is where the language was confused, okay? So Babylon is going to be the nation that comes in and swoops in and takes the Jews out as captives out of the land due to their lack of faithfulness. In verse 53, we get some more gruesome warnings. And this is just like this. A lot of the things that you've been reading about, like you're going to see your children taken away from you in your eyes. You're going to just look at them and fail, and you can't do anything about it. That's just the nature of warfare. Okay, what it means is you're going to be going into war. You're going to be losing these battles. And the end result of losing war in the ancient world is, all these terrible things. Verse 53, and you shall eat the offspring of your own body, the flesh of your sons and daughters. This is what happens during the siege of Jerusalem. This also happens in the siege of Samaria. So this happens in Samaria when it's destroyed, and it also happens when Rome destroys Jerusalem. They turn to cannibalism of the offspring. Which is terrible, right? But like in some ways, it's like God is letting them just eat their own fruits of their own actions. Because we'll point out a couple different examples of human sacrifice that the Israelites fall into. As when they're falling for Baal worship and doing those things. So if those are the gods that they want to serve, then they're gonna, eat the fruits of their worship. All right, we're all hardwired to worship something. So the Israelites have the choice of worshiping Yahweh, who's the true God who brings liberty, or they're going to worship and be enslaved to these pagan gods and to these pagan peoples. But we all, at the end of the day, serve someone. Verse 58, if you are not careful to do all the words of this law, highlight that phrase, words of this law, which are written in the book, that you may fear this glorious and awesome name, the Lord your God, then the Lord will bring on you and your offspring extraordinary afflictions severe and lasting, and sickness grievous and lasting. So that phrase, words of this law, it's used in the prophets, particularly in Jeremiah. So whenever Jeremiah talks about the words of the law, he's like making a very clear, concrete connection to these blessings and curses in Deuteronomy. Verse 61, every sickness also and every affliction which is not recorded in the book of this law, the Lord will bring upon you until you are destroyed. Whereas you were as the stars of heaven for multitude, you shall be left few in number. So at verse 62, you can make a note to the book of Jeremiah. This is what happens. And then also Genesis 15. Genesis 15 is when God promises Abraham, your descendants will be like the multitude and the stars of heaven. But if they're going to opt out of the covenant, then they're going to be cut off from that family. It's just Genesis 15 and the book of Jeremiah. Because you did not obey the voice of the Lord your God. Verse 63. And as the Lord took delight in doing you good and multiplying you, so the Lord will take delight in bringing ruin upon you and destroying you. Why? because this would be chastisement for Israel. All right, a good parent chastises their child when they've gone astray, and they know they're doing the right thing when they're punishing their child, okay, because they're setting their child up for future success. Jump down to verse 67. In the morning you shall say, would it were evening, and at evening you should say, would it were the morning, because of the dread which your heart shall fear, and the sights which your eyes shall see, and the Lord will bring you back in ships to Egypt, a journey which I promised you should never make again. And there you shall offer yourselves for sale to your enemies as male and female slaves, but no one's even going to want to buy you. You'll be so miserable and pitiful. All right? So would that it were evening, would that it were morning. That means you constantly hate the time of day that it is, all right? There's nothing good going on. If you're anticipating, like, I wish this was over with, I wish it was the next day. And then when you get to the next day, I wish this was over, I wish it was the next day. It just illustrates the state of misery that they'll be in. And then they are going to be brought back to Egypt, but they're going to be so miserable looking that no one's even going to want to buy them, all right? There's a funny Key and Peele skit about this, being on an auction block, and no one wants to buy them. But that's like what God is saying is going to happen to the nation of Israel. You can also make a note to Jeremiah. Again, I don't have the chapter or verse for you, but in the book of Jeremiah, with the fall of Jerusalem, this is when the nation is brought back to Egypt. There are people who are taken in ships to be sold into slavery in the land of Egypt. Chapter 29. These highlight the words of the covenant. All right, the words of the law, the words of the covenant. This phrase is very important. Which the Lord commanded Moses to make with the sons of Israel in the land of Moab, besides the covenant which he made with them at Horeb. So Moses made a covenant with the people at Horeb, but now this covenant is being made in Moab. Why? Because this is the new generation. The old generation that made the covenant at Horeb is now dead, with some few exceptions, which would be Caleb and Joshua, and Moses is still alive. This generation was not present at Mount Sinai, so now this is their moment to say, all that the Lord has spoken we will do, okay, and stick to the covenant. Let's jump down to verse 9. Therefore, be careful to do the words of this covenant, all right? The words of the covenant, again, that phrase. Being very prominent throughout the book of Jeremiah. Verse 16, chapter 29, verse 16. You know how we dwelt in the land of Egypt, and how we came through the midst of the nations through which you passed, and you have seen their detestable things, their idols of wood and stone, of silver and gold, which were among them. Beware lest there be among you a man or woman or family or tribe whose heart turns away this day from the Lord our God to go and steal things. No, to go and serve the gods of those nations, lest there be among you a root bearing poisonous and bitter fruit. Jumping down to verse 20. The Lord would not pardon him, but rather the anger of the Lord and his jealousy would smoke against that man, and the curses written in this book, highlight that phrase, the curses written in this book, would settle upon him, and the Lord would blot out his name from under heaven, and the Lord would single him out from all the tribes of Israel for calamity in accordance with, highlight, the curses of the covenant written in this book of the law. Verse 23, the whole land, brimstone and salt and a burnt out waste, unsown and growing, nothing which no grass can sprout, an overthrow like that of Sodom and Gomorrah, Admah and Zeboim, which the Lord overthrew in his anger and his wrath. All right. Verse 24, yes, all the nations would say, why has the Lord done thus to this land? What means the heat of this great anger? Then men would say, it is because they forsook the covenant of the Lord their God, their fathers, which he made with them when he brought them out of the land of Egypt. and went and served other gods and worshipped them, gods whom they had not known, and whom he had not allotted to them. Therefore the anger of the Lord was kindled against the land, bringing upon it all, highlight this phrase again, the curses written in this book. And the Lord uprooted them from the land in anger and fury and great wrath, and cast them into another land, as at this day. The secret things belong to the Lord our God, but the things that are revealed belong to us and to our children forever, that we may do all, one more time, the words of this law. So, looks like it'll be pretty bad for Israel if they become pagan. Chapter 30, we get the resolution to this, though. And when all these things come upon you, the blessings and the curse which I've set before you, and you call them to mind among all the nations where the Lord your God has driven you, and return to the Lord your God, you and your children, and obey his voice in all that I command you this day, with all your heart and with all your soul. Then the Lord your God will restore your fortunes. All right, so when you return back to being monotheists, God will restore your fortunes. Verse 6, and the Lord God will circumcise your heart and the heart of your offspring, so that they will love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul, that you may live. All right, so the law is going to be internalized. Verse 10, if you obey the voice of the Lord your God to keep his commandments and his statutes, which are written in this book of the law, if you turn to the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul. Verse 11, for this commandment which I command you this day is not too hard for you, neither is it far off. What's not too hard? Monotheism. Okay? If you just turn down the invitations to go to fertility cults, and stick to worshiping Yahweh only, this is rather straightforward. It is not in heaven that you should say, who will go up for us to heaven and bring it to us that we may hear it and do it? Neither is it beyond the sea that you should say, who will go over the sea for us and bring it to us that we may hear it and do it? But the word is very near you. It's a very powerful sense. The word is very near you, especially when you think about this law. It is the word of God, okay? And the word of God is the second person, and that's talking about, the Jesus, the Son that has begun. All right, so the word is very near them. The word is dwelling with them as the law. God is dwelling with them as the Shekinah, the glory cloud and the pillar of fire. No other nation has, advantages or preferences like this. It is in your mouth and in your heart so that you can do it. Verse 15, see, I have set before you this day life and good, death and evil. If you obey the commandments of the Lord your God, when I command you this day, by loving the Lord your God, by walking in his ways, and by keeping his commandments and his statutes and his ordinances, then you shall live and multiply. All right, so following the law, the Torah, brings life. That's another little semantic thing I'd like to share with you guys, is that the Torah can have two directions, two translations. It's most commonly translated as law. All right, so when you read the Psalms, I meditate upon the Lord's law, and it brings me delight. I meditate on his ways, and it brings life. The law makes me glad. Another translation is direction. If you follow the directions of the Lord, they bring life. If I meditate on Yahweh's directions and I rejoice in them. I think law is a perfectly fine translation, right? And if the word law makes us uncomfortable, it's just because we're a bunch of rebellious adolescents living in America and we want freedom and we hate laws. We see them as restrictive. Okay, that's kind of like the cultural situation we're in. So maybe since we have that failing culturally, when you read through the law and you think direction, it might more strike a chord with you as a vocab word that you'd be able to relate to. But ultimately, I mean, they both mean the same thing. Laws are directions. All right. And the Lord your God will bless you in the land which you are entering to take possession of it. Verse 17. But if your heart turns away, and you will not hear, but are drawn away to worship other gods and serve them, I declare to you this day that you shall perish. You shall not live long in the land which you are going over the Jordan to enter and possess. I call heaven and earth to witness against you this day, that I have set before you life and death, blessing and curse. Therefore choose life, that you and your descendants may live. Verse 19, I call heaven and earth to witness against you this day. Make a note to Isaiah chapter 1, verse 1. In the book of Isaiah, he begins off by saying, I call to witness heaven and earth. And you're reading this prophet, and it's like, whoa. What does that mean? It's calling it down the heavens and the earth to be judgment. Why? Because whenever you make a covenant, there's a permanent witness. Okay? So it can be like a monolith, this giant rock that's going to last several generations. But you make your covenant, and there's going to be something as a reminder of the covenant that's going to be fixed. So in Deuteronomy, the fixed witness is going to be the heavens and the earth. And so when Isaiah opens up, in his book with I call to witness heaven and earth, what he's doing is he's reminding Israel of, hey, you have not been following the law. You have not been following Deuteronomy, and I'm calling to with the witness of this covenant, which are the heavens and the earth. Verse 20, loving the Lord your God, obeying his voice and clinging to him, for that means life to you and length of days, that you may dwell in the land which the Lord swore to your fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, and Jacob, to give them. Jump ahead to verse 3. The Lord your God himself will go over before you. He will destroy these nations before you, so that you shall dispossess them. And Joshua will go over at your head, as the Lord has spoken. Verse 6, be strong and of good courage, and do not fear or be in dread of them, for it is the Lord your God who goes with you. He will not fail you or forsake you. Verse 9, and Moses wrote this law and gave it to the priests, the sons of Levi, who carried the ark of the covenant of the Lord, and to all the elders of Israel. And Moses commanded them, at the end of every 7 years, at the set time of the year of release, at the Feast of Booths, when all Israel comes to appear before the Lord your God, assemble the people and reread the law to them, all right, at the Feast of Tabernacles. So here is where Moses is done writing, okay? Going forward, you can speculate that this is where the editor takes over to finish out the story of Deuteronomy. But Moses is done writing narratively. Jump ahead to verse 16. And the Lord said to Moses, behold, you are about to sleep with your fathers. The time has come for you to die. Then this people will rise and play the harlot after the strange gods of the land where they go to be among them. And they will forsake me and break my covenant, which I have made with them. So Moses is told of the coming unfaithfulness. Jump ahead to verse 23. And the Lord commissioned Joshua, the son of Nun, and said, be strong and of good courage, for you shall bring the children of Israel into the land which I swore to give them. I will be with you. Verse 26, take this book of the law and put it by the side of the ark of the covenant of the Lord your God, that it may be there for a witness against you. Verse 29, for I know that after my death you will surely act corruptly. This is Moses speaking to the people. And turn aside from the way which I have commanded you. And in the days to come, evil will befall you, because you will do what is evil in the sight of the Lord, provoking him to anger through the work of your hands. Very briefly, just there's the Song of Moses. I just want to point out 2 verses to reiterate some of the themes that we've already talked about. In verse 20, this is chapter 32, verse 20. And he said, I will hide my face from them. I will see what their end will be, for they are a perverse generation. All right, that phrase perverse generation appears again. That is what Jesus calls the generation that he's living among, of the Jews. Drawing that parallel between Christ and Moses, Jesus is the new Moses, the new giver of the law. And then also in verse 30, how should one chase 1,000 and 2 put 10,000 to flight? That's the theme of the book of Maccabees, right? That one is going to go into battle and put to flight 1,000. Why? Because God is fighting the battle for him. It's due to the faithfulness of the covenant, not their own military prowess. And so now we come to chapter 34, the last chapter in the book of Deuteronomy, the last chapter in the book of the last chapter in the Torah, the first 5 books. Chapter 2. Chapter 34. And Moses went up from the plains of Moab to Mount Nebo, to the top of Pisgah, which is opposite Jericho. And the Lord showed him all the land Gilead as far as Dan, all Naphtali, the land of Ephraim and Manasseh, all the land of Judah as far as the western sea, the Negeb and the plain, that is, the valley of Jericho, the city of palm trees as far as Zor. And the Lord said to him, this is the land of which I swore to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, I will give to your descendants. I have let you see with your eyes, but you shall not go over there. So Moses, the servant of the Lord, died there in the land of Moab, according to the word of the Lord. And he, the he there is reference to God, he buried him in the valley in the land of Moab, opposite Beth Peor. But no man knows the place of his burial to this day. Make a note to Jude chapter 9, right here. Oh, sorry, Jude, actually, they're on a chapter. It's just verse 9. Jude, verse 9. Jude 9 gets the same thing. And I'm just going to read from the Epistle of Jude for you guys. Yet in like manner, these men in their dreamings defile the flesh, reject authority, and revile the glorious ones. But when the archangel Michael, contending with the devil, disputed about the body of Moses, he did not presume to pronounce reviling judgment upon him, but said, the Lord rebuke you. But these men revile what they do not understand, and by those things they do not know by instinct, as irrational animals do, they are destroyed. Woe to them, for they walk in the way of Cain, so on and so forth. So in Jude, you get just a reference to Michael and the devil contending over the body of Moses, which is a strange passage. That with the fact that no one knows where his burial place is to this day. There's no grave of Moses. Then you get this reference to angelic forces battling over the body. And also, Moses appears at the transfiguration of Christ alongside Elijah. And Elijah, it's pretty explicit that Elijah is taken up to heaven in a fiery chariot. So this leads commentators to look at, this death of Moses ends in a bodily assumption. So Moses is taken up to heaven. Elijah is taken up to heaven. We already looked at Enoch, all right, was referenced as not dying but being taken up to heaven. So there's 3 assumptions in the Old Testament that kind of helps set the context for the Catholic dogma of the Assumption of Mary. It's not like something that comes out of left field that has no precedent before. So Moses doesn't have any burial. Don't know where he is. Verse 7, Moses was 120 years old when he died. His eye was not dim, nor his natural force abated. again, that natural force not being abated, what does that mean? Kind of plays into the theory of the assumption of Moses. And the sons of Israel wept for Moses in the plains of Moab 30 days. And then the days of weeping and mourning for Moses were ended. And Joshua the son of Nun was full of the spirit of wisdom, for Moses had laid his hands upon him. When did Moses lay his hands upon him? Back in Numbers 27. So the sons of Israel obeyed him and did as the Lord commanded Moses. And there has not arisen a prophet since in Israel like Moses, whom the Lord knew face to face. Make a note back to Deuteronomy chapter 18. Deuteronomy chapter 18, verse 15.
What was the chapter?
Deuteronomy 18, verse 15. That's when Moses tells the people that the Lord's going to raise up a prophet for you just like me. All right, we had talked about that being a prophecy of the resurrection of Christ. So Moses says a prophet like me is going to come. And then Deuteronomy concludes, there has not arisen a prophet like Moses, whom the Lord knew face to face. So under the Deuteronomy 18, verse 15, you can also make a reference to John chapter 1. Gospel of John chapter 1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. And the Word was God. All right, so the context for Christ's ministry is set as, there's someone who does know God intimately. This completion of that prophecy of Moses, that prophet's coming who does know God face to face. And who reveals the face of God. Verse 11, none like him for all the signs and wonders which the Lord sent him to do in the land of Egypt to Pharaoh and to all his servants and to all his land, and for all the mighty power and all the great and terrible deeds which Moses wrought in the sight of Israel. All right, we'll begin the book of Joshua tomorrow.